Hi everyone, thank you so much for your time in watching my oral presentation. My name is Vanessa Petty. The focus of my paper is advancing restorative practices in the workplace. My entry point into this field was looking at restorative justice as an alternative to the criminal legal system, looking at it at other common uses like school implementation and also family group decision making. I've been part of an organization in Los Angeles, California for the past 4 or 5 years now. And as we continue to evolve our program, we began to get asks from community organizations, from local businesses and community groups to bring restorative practices to their workplace, to help folks move through conflicts, either with facilitated circle processes and also through workshops. And so that experience over the last few years, my journey to really look at the tools and philosophies that restorative practices offers in conjunction with some more historical fields like organizational psychology, human resources, organizational development, and really look at that discipline as well, bridging the two tools and principles into this really holistic model that organizations, when they reach out to us, not only receive the services they need for conflict resolution, but help really shift their entire organization and implement a new culture of restorative practices that can be sustainable, offer a more happy, functioning learning environment and working environment for their staff, and also the people that they're serving in their communities. And so I want to focus on two big ideas that are coming out of my paper, and that is that first, an authentic, trusting, and communicative community has to first get established within a group before restorative practices can successfully become a cultural norm. The second big idea is that organizations must normalize conflict in their workplaces and utilize it as truly an opportunity for growth, for learning, for evolution with each other. And when upholding both of those and using a pretty complex model, they're able to have the most holistic and healthy working environment possible. So I want to draw our attention to the very well-known restorative practices continuum, and that scale, which I have drawn out here, that scale is acknowledging that there's both prevention and intervention possible within restorative practices, and different tools like affective statements, affective questioning, impromptu group processes, all the way up to more formal processes. So again, this informal to formal scale. That I certainly do agree with this continuum. I recognize that this scale is absolutely accurate. However, I do feel that it's incomplete when we're looking at implementation into a workplace environment. And so if you look at your guiding document that I have attached to the Moodle for this presentation, you'll see a much prettier diagram than what I drew. And here is our flowering plant. And this is the model that I'd like to recommend be advocated when we're looking at restorative practices within organizations. This is a flowering, fruit-bearing plant. You see on your paper in front of you, it's a little pepper plant. And the roots, the stem, and the leaves all represent this big idea number one about how do we meaningfully build this community, this safe container for folks to practice being brave with each other, being creative with conflict that ultimately will show up for them versus toxic. So when we look at the roots, I parallel the roots to be the training process, the workshops that staff will undergo. And so in these trainings, this is where staff are able to start exploring what are their communication styles, what are some of the policies and practices that feel liberating in their workplace or feel oppressive in their workplace, where folks can start gaining the language around needs-based theory, start trying on what does it feel like to give direct feedback, to invite someone to an impromptu circle, facilitating that themselves. The STEM is to represent, after the training, how does the organization make commitments and staff make commitments to put this into practice, right? To let the soil and the roots serve as nutrients and feed the policies and practices that the organization uses really as its center, its spine, its backbone. The leaves represent the inevitable opportunities that might come up on a daily basis for some or weekly, where they need to engage in the tools that they learned in the trainings. So using restorative dialogue to address any tension that's happening, to practice things like the social discipline window and ask for some support from their colleague, or to lean in and offer working with someone in an improvement or a project. The leaves are both bigger and small, are multi-sized, right? So there's big leaves, there's small leaves. Just like there's some small moments where we need to lean in and use restorative dialogue, and there might be some big moments where we need to really step back and look at some formal processes. Which brings me to our second big idea regarding normalizing conflict in the workplace. I'd like to share this other model of the intergroup dynamics that happen as an inevitable cycle when groups come together and are in their forming stage, in their storming stage, their norming and performing stage. It's rare for organizations to get out of the norming to performing. Oftentimes folks are experiencing a storm with each other and are just relieved to get out of it and teeter between norming and storming. Getting to this performing place, folks really have to look closely at what's happening in their conflict, right? And the circle process is perfect for that. The flowers represent the different types of circle. We know that restorative practices gives us tools for common community building circles, celebration circles holding space when transitions are happening on teams, but they also have the ability for us to have harm and conflict circles. I appreciate the analogy and symbolism of a flowering plant, and that some flowering plants, right, have flowers that come out to bloom once and you never see them again. Some plants have flowers that are visible on a weekly basis, seasonal basis, and in that same way, some organizations are utilizing circle practice at every Friday team meeting, right? Or maybe they do it every time they have a quarterly meeting with clients that they're serving. These circles are available and are something really beautiful and to be held really beautifully when there's an opportunity to come together for it in your workplace. The fruit, that is what I look at as the circle type when harm has happened. So the fruit, for me, looks like the restorative justice circle. It might take a long time before that fruit is ready to be eaten, right? It might take a long time to prep folks before they're ready to show up for that harm and conflict circle. But the seeds that are available and come out of that fruit, that to me are the agreements that are formed in circle. It's the invitation that as staff leave the circle process, they can make a commitment to carry out their agreement plan. They can make that commitment to water the intentions that everyone brought to that circle process. And when we look again at this entirety and this flower diagram, this plant diagram, it's asking organizations to make a financial investment, a time investment, and really buy in from an administrative all the way to executive level. Those are some of the implications for folks who want to say yes to restorative practices in their workplace environments. But I would say from my experience, seeing organizations that took our offer to go from trainings in their roots all the way up to fruit restorative circle processes with us, folks left that circle feeling really like their team had been transformed, and that this is that holistic model that folks are aspiring to really change their experience day in and day out in their workplace with their team. You see on that guideline paper you have in front of you the abstract to my paper, as well as the image. I hope that you can consider bringing restorative practices to your work and community environments. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day.